All right, let's talk some running game for a second. This is interesting stuff. So I wanted to just break down the Rams offense. This is kind of last main thing to talk about with the Rams offense heading into the Super Bowl is the running game. Because quite frankly, the running game hasn't been spectacular as of late, and honestly, all season it hasn't really been spectacular. So let's get into a couple of charts. This first chart, let's use some EPA. If you don't know EPA, it's basically using the expected points you're about to get for each play and how much you added on that play. So let's say, for example, you're in a first and 10 at your own 25, and let's just, again, I'm making up numbers, but let's say your expected points in that drive are 2 points if you're in that situation. But then if you score a touchdown there, that would be 5 expected points added. So that's how that works. The Rams rushing offensive EPA this season is 20th, but what's interesting is the Rams rushing offense EPA not in garbage time falls all the way to 29th. The way you do that is just when a play happens, when a team has less than 30% chance to win, I just took it off the table altogether. So kind of fascinating how it's not horrible when the game is, when the game is like sort of in garbage time, but when the game is close, it actually is horrible. It's really bad. Although the flip side is you actually kind of maybe the time you need to run the football at its best might be in garbage time, right? Killing the clock if you're up. So I don't know. Interesting stuff there. The Bengals are 14th regardless of which one you use. So Bengals do have an advantage in terms of just the raw data. As for how often LA, and this is the Rams, run the football, obviously we're not talking about the Chargers. Just for whatever reason, it goes LAC and LA. So LA is the Rams. They actually passed the ball a little bit over expected. So, 3% over expected. That's actually relatively high. And their early down pass frequency is 5th most in football. So they're not afraid to throw the football. But that kind of does make you wonder, well, why is their running game not being too effective? Well, I have some theories on it, but we'll get more into that in a second. So first, let's talk about the Bengals defense, the Bengals run defense. Hey, it's been pretty good, and it's even more impressive when you factor in the fact that they play a lot of cover too, which means that 2 safeties are away from the football, right? You have those 2 guys, they can't really get into the play on a running play. Look, for Kansas City, everyone is accounted for here except for the 2 safeties. Because, again, think about it logically. You have a halfback and quarterback in the game. Quarterback hands the ball off to the halfback. So now you can only have 2 safeties who are deep and everyone else is accounted for. Whereas if you only had 1 safety deep, now you have an extra guy who can, be unblocked and try and make a play. Look, Mahomes is going to hand the ball off, and they're going to gain some yards here. That's largely how the Kansas City Chiefs were able to run the ball with effectiveness against Cincinnati. It was largely a scheme thing, more so than just pure talent. Although going over here now, it wasn't just a scheme thing. There was some talent at play here as well. Really, there's going to be one main block I'm going to want you to take a look at. It's going to be that double team. This is Logan Wilson, who's been solid this season. Him and Jermaine Pratt are really their 2 main linebackers. Those are the guys who have gotten the most amount of snaps for them this year. But certainly the way that they're able to have effectiveness in the running game, in the run defense, has been with their good defensive line and kind of their big guys like, DJ Reader, obviously the headliner, and then obviously BJ Hill, and even the ends, Hubbard and Hendrickson can do stuff. But, for the linebackers, not quite as good, and this could be an area of weakness for them. Watch how on this play, hey, great job right there. Cincinnati, well done. You were not able to finish off that double team. The Chiefs weren't. So that's what you want to have happen there. And that was Sam Hubbard who made that play. He took on the double team, did not allow someone to get off to now get up and block Wilson. This is perfect. Except Wilson's just going to get ran over right here by Jerick McKinnon. So that's obviously not ideal. And I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time or anything like that. Of course it isn't. But, there is a couple of stuff like that. So not a huge weakness. I don't want to make it seem like I think this is a disaster by any means. But probably easier to hurt Cincinnati at the second level than it would be at the first level. Therefore, I think logically you might say, hey, try to double guys, at that first level and then get off and block the other guys because they're maybe easier to get to. But that's where number 24 has to come in here. Let's talk about Von Bell, who's quietly had a really good season for Cincinnati. He's a key piece of this puzzle for them, and he really does. When you watch film, he just pops. And this is going to be an example of Von Bell where, this should be an easy play to make. You're doubling an interior defensive lineman, but then you're going to get up and you're going to have to, one of them's going to go block Bell. Well, Bell's pretty far away. He's 10 yards away. You should have plenty of time to do this. However, one of the issues is the guy you're trying to double is DJ Reader, who I talked about. We know who DJ Reader is. He's a really talented player. So when Kansas City tries to double Reader, it does not go over too well, and Von Bell is able to then step up, get into the play, and still make a tackle. Even if you are 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage, there's no rule saying you can't go up and make a quick tackle, especially if you have to use extra resources right at that first level. So that's one of the ways that I think you could certainly sit here and say, well, there's advantage. Cincinnati is basically, they have talented players. They do have weaknesses as well, but you know what? Sometimes it's less about being able to stop the run on every single play and more about being able to stop the run on every other play. That can be a real factor. But now let's go over to the Rams. Let's talk about the Rams for a second. And let's talk about this block in particular, Van Jefferson's block. And you might be wondering, wait a second, Jackson, who cares about a wide receiver blocking? Okay, let's talk about the offensive line. Let's talk about the tight ends. Well, the thing is, the Rams kind of use their wide receivers as tight ends, and sometimes it works out really well. Like, I remember Cooper Kupp leveled Devin White in the divisional round, for example. Like, it does happen. These things do happen. However, if you have guys who can beat up on wide receivers, this is a great way to stop the run. And this has actually been a key way that the Rams have kind of struggled to run the football in the playoffs. Look at how on this play, Jefferson just doesn't make that tackle. It's a tough matchup for him. Like, that's tough. Wide receivers typically aren't known for their blocking for the most part. So kind of this schematic thing can definitely be a big advantage for the Bengals if they can take advantage of it. Like, I remember another play in this game was you had Odell Beckham Jr. trying to block Nick Bosa one-on-one. It's like, okay, that's probably not going to work. And so take advantage of that if you're the Bengals. And so now let's go over to this play. So can Cincinnati take advantage of that kind of thing? Well, on a spot like this, you have Von Bell. Again, he's my guy on this one. He's, I think, going to be a real key figure in this game. And if the Bengals win, it'll probably be because he had a big game. And A.J. Brown's the one who's blocking him, who is not a bad blocking wide receiver by any means. However, look at how Von Bell is going to be able to win this matchup pretty well and get over and help make that tackle on Derrick Henry. So, yeah, Cincinnati can have success at this kind of stuff. I think it is a good matchup for them in terms of the running game. I don't think that the Rams should be able to have a fantastic day running the ball. Now, I think the flip side is, how much does that matter? And that's a fair point. I don't know how, I feel like having a bad run defense can certainly lose you a game, but really, I do think that at the end of the day, games are going to be won through the passing game. That typically is how it works. But in a game like this, where teams might try to work a lot more methodical drives, you might see a lot more running plays, and this is advantage Cincinnati, I think. So, okay, final chart here. This is what I do after the end of all of these, where if this is the first video of mine you've watched, well, first off, thanks, appreciate it. But basically what I do is at the end of each of these previews, where I'm previewing one aspect of the upcoming Super Bowl, I then just give a little note at the end of, on a scale of 1 to 5, who gets the advantage in this matchup given this specific thing, and on 1 to 5, how big of an advantage is it? It's just for fun and kind of an easy way to keep track of all this stuff. If you have any confusion about why I have certain grades on this chart, check out my video where I talk about it. It's all going to be on the channel. This is chronological. So Rams ground game, I'm giving a +4 to Cincinnati. I can't go all the way to +5. The Rams still do have a good offensive line, and I can still see there maybe being a weakness in the linebacking core for Cincinnati. And again, weakness is relative, right? Because it's a Super Bowl. No team has two glaring weaknesses except for the Bengals right guard. But as in maybe a not quite as strong point might be the better way to phrase it. I think that's why I'm, not giving it 5, but I'm giving it +4. I think that there should be some significant ways for the Bengals to be able to make some stops. Would I be shocked if the Rams are able to break off a big run or two? Maybe not shocked, but I would be surprised. I don't think it'll happen. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.